Welcome to my channel. I hope today's story captures your interest and leaves you wanting more. Your continued support truly means a lot to me. Now, let's get started with the story.
I live in a suburb outside Austin, in a house that technically isn't mine. That detail never used to bother me. I told myself ownership is paperwork, not presence. Emily bought the place years before I met her. Her name alone sits on the deed. Her fingerprints are in the grout lines of the bathroom tile she once scrubbed alone. Sophie's childhood is etched into the hallway wall in faint pencil lines marking her height year after year. I never tried to erase any of it. I just paid for everything. When I married Emily, she didn't look like someone drowning. She was composed, capable, but I saw the numbers. I saw the quiet panic behind late-night budgeting sessions. Credit cards nearly maxed. A second mortgage she pretended was temporary. A roof that leaked every spring storm and a kitchen that functioned on apology. I didn't make a show of stepping in. No grand speeches about being the man of the house. I opened my accounts and started transferring money. Debt first, then repairs, then renovations. The roof was stripped and redone. The contractors worked for 3 weeks in the Texas heat while I signed checks without flinching. After that came the kitchen, marble counters, new cabinets, stainless steel appliances. Sophie invited her friends over the week it was finished. I overheard her say, "We finally redid it." As if the money had grown from the garden. Emily cried when the last cabinet door clicked shut perfectly into place. She wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "You saved us." I believed her. I paid off the lingering credit cards quietly. I refinanced the worst of the debt under better terms using my credit. I never held it over her. Never mentioned the totals. I told myself that love keeps no ledger. When Sophie turned 16, I bought her a car. Not flashy, not reckless, safe, reliable. The kind of car a responsible man chooses when he cares about a girl getting home alive. I handed her the keys in the driveway. She smiled, polite, grateful in the way teenagers are trained to be. "Thanks, Mark." Mark, not Dad. I never pushed for it. I told her once, early on, that I wasn't trying to replace her father. I just wanted to be someone she could count on. She nodded back then too. I showed up. School pickups when Emily worked late. Parent-teacher meetings when her biological father canceled last minute. I fixed the garbage disposal, the fence after storms, the sprinkler system when it flooded half the yard. I paid the mortgage, still in Emily's name, every single month. Insurance, utilities, private school tuition, summer camps, vacation deposits. I was the quiet engine beneath the house. But engines don't get portraits on the wall. At first, the imbalance was subtle. Decisions discussed between Emily and Sophie, then summarized to me afterward. Weekend plans already made. Financial commitments already assumed. If I hesitated, if I suggested caution, I'd hear it. "You're taking it too personally." Maybe I was. The strange how invisibility happens slowly. Not through rejection, but through omission. My opinions became optional. My concerns labeled overreactions. When Sophie rolled her eyes at something I said, Emily would give her a look, but never a correction. Respect erodes in inches. There are photo albums from Maui sitting in the living room cabinet. I paid for that trip entirely. Flights, resort, excursions. I can prove it in bank statements if anyone ever cared to see. In the pictures, Emily and Sophie stand in the surf, arms around each other, sunburned and smiling. In 2 photos, the edge of my arm is visible. That's it. Proof I existed. I told myself it didn't matter. Love is action, not applause. But action without acknowledgement becomes servitude. The turning point came on an ordinary Tuesday. Dinner, chicken, green beans, the hum of the ceiling fan above us. Nothing dramatic in the air. Emily was discussing refinancing options again. Shifting rates, possible equity leverage. She and Sophie had clearly talked about it already. I suggested waiting. Rates were unstable. It didn't make sense to rush. Sophie looked up from her phone slowly. No anger. No raised voice. "You don't owe us anything," she said. We were fine before you. The fork stopped halfway to my mouth. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't teenage heat. It was calm, measured, like she was correcting an assumption. Emily didn't laugh it off. Didn't say, "That's not fair." Didn't defend me. She just went silent. That silence pressed against my chest harder than the words. Because what I heard wasn't about money. I heard, "This was ours before you." I heard, "You're extra." I heard, "You are temporary." I finished my meal, chewed, swallowed, carried my plate to the sink, rinsed it, wiped the counter, the ordinary rituals of a man trying not to unravel. Upstairs, in the dark, Emily reached for my arm. She didn't mean it like that. I stared at the ceiling fan turning above us. What did she mean? I asked quietly. She's protective. She doesn't want you to feel obligated. Obligated. That word echoed. Obligation implies burden, transaction, a favor. Was that what I was? A generous outsider? I thought about the mortgage draft scheduled for the next morning, the tuition payment clearing at the end of the week, the insurance auto-withdrawal, the streaming subscriptions, the gas card linked to my account. If I wasn't obligated, then what was I? A tenant who pays without ownership? A sponsor? A placeholder between fathers? The house creaked softly in the night. I realized something then that I had avoided for years. Everything I built stood on ground that was never truly mine. And the people living inside it knew that. I didn't feel rage. I felt displacement. Like I had been renting space in their lives, and the lease was month to month. For the first time since moving in, I imagined not paying. Not announcing it. Not threatening it. Just stopping. And I lay there in the dark asking myself a question I had avoided for years. If I disappeared tomorrow, would they grieve me? Or would they simply adjust the budget? Tell me. If you sat at that table and heard those words, and your wife said nothing, would you have convinced yourself it meant nothing? Or would you have finally understood exactly where you stood? After that dinner, the house didn't change. That was the worst part. No arguments. No slammed doors. No emotional reckoning. Just the same routines, the same schedules, the same quiet assumption that I would continue being what I had always been. The mortgage drafted from my account that Friday morning. Insurance cleared the next day. Sophie's tuition installment processed without delay. No one mentioned dinner again. Emily moved through the kitchen like nothing had fractured. She asked me to look at the dishwasher Saturday morning. It was making a grinding noise. I knelt on the tile floor, tools spread beside me, while Sophie stepped over my legs to grab a bottle of water from the fridge. "Thanks," she muttered, not looking at me. Not gratitude, not disrespect, just indifference. Indifference is colder than hatred. Hatred at least acknowledges you exist. I started watching more closely after that. Watching the pattern. If I offered an opinion about Sophie's schedule, it was redirected through Emily. If I questioned a purchase, it was softened with, "You're taking it too personally." If I reminded them about expenses stacking up, the air would shift. Not in guilt, but in irritation. As if I were introducing negativity into an otherwise peaceful house. Peaceful. That word used to comfort me. Now it felt staged. I began noticing how often my name was absent from conversations that directly involved my money. Sophie and Emily discussing spring break plans, browsing destinations, calculating time off. No one asked if I wanted to go. It was simply assumed I would pay. There's a peculiar humiliation in being financially central and emotionally peripheral. You are essential but not valued, necessary but not respected. I tested something small one afternoon. Sophie mentioned needing new tires. The car I bought her was parked crooked in the driveway. I nodded and said, "Let's compare prices before we commit." She shrugged. Emily replied instead, "We'll handle it." I waited. 2 days later, the charge hit my account. They hadn't even told me they'd scheduled it. That night, I lay awake longer than usual. Not angry, just clear. Clarity is dangerous. It removes excuses. I opened my banking app in the dark, screen light reflecting off the ceiling. Every auto payment was lined up neatly. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, tuition, credit cards, streaming services. The gas card linked to Sophie's wallet. Every lifeline traced back to me. You don't owe us anything. The sentence echoed differently now. It wasn't dismissal. It was permission. If I didn't owe them anything, then why was I paying everything? I didn't act immediately. I waited. I watched. Sophie rolled her eyes at me when I reminded her to refill the gas tank before it dropped below a quarter. Emily sighed when I suggested tightening discretionary spending before summer. You're overreacting. That phrase became the anthem of the house. Overreacting. To disrespect. To invisibility. To being reduced to a line item. The final straw wasn't explosive. It was small. Sophie came home late one evening. Past curfew we'd all agreed on months earlier. I was sitting at the kitchen table when she slipped in, shoes in hand. Curfew was 11, I said quietly. She froze, then straightened. You're not my dad. Not shouted. Not cruel. Just factual. Emily stepped into the hallway from the bedroom, robe wrapped around her. Sophie, she said softly. But it wasn't correction. It was containment. I looked at Emily, waiting. She avoided my eyes. Let's not make this a big deal, she murmured. It's been a long day. A long day. That was the defense. In that moment, something inside me went still. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Stillness. The kind that comes when you finally stop hoping. I realized then that respect in that house flowed in one direction only, toward Sophie. Toward her feelings, her stress, her adjustments. Mine were indulgences. Optional. I stood up from the table. No, I said calmly. It's not a big deal. And I meant it, because I was done making it one. The next morning, I opened a new bank account. Different institution. Different login. Direct deposit redirected. I didn't announce it. Didn't threaten. Didn't dramatize. I left the existing auto payments untouched for now. Let the system continue humming. I wanted one more billing cycle. One more quiet month where they assumed the foundation was stable. Emily kissed me goodbye that morning like always. Sophie grabbed her keys and left for school without looking up. Neither of them knew the ground had shifted. I went to work and felt something unfamiliar. Control. For years, I had equated love with endurance. Now I was learning that love without boundaries becomes self-erasure. I wasn't plotting revenge. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was stepping back from a role they insisted I didn't hold. If I wasn't a father, if I wasn't obligated, then I was free. The next mortgage draft was scheduled for the 1st of the month. I made sure the old account would be empty by then. The 1st of the month arrived quietly. It always does. No thunder. No warning. Just a date on a calendar and a system that assumes continuity. For years, that system had been me. Reliable. Automatic. Invisible. At 6:12 a.m. My phone vibrated on the nightstand. Mortgage payment failed. Insufficient funds. I stared at the notification without moving. The room was still dark. Emily slept beside me, breathing evenly, unaware that the foundation beneath her comfort had just shifted. I felt no rush of adrenaline, no spike of guilt, just confirmation. I rolled out of bed, dressed for work, and went downstairs. The house looked the same. Polished counters, quiet refrigerator hum, Sophie's backpack slung over a chair. The kitchen I had paid for gleamed in the early light. At 7:03 a.m. Another alert. Auto insurance draft unsuccessful. Then tuition. Then the gas card. One by one, the invisible threads snapped. I poured coffee slowly, sat at the island, waited. Emily discovered it first. I heard the sharp inhale from the living room as she checked her email. Then the rapid tapping of her phone screen. Then footsteps, fast, uneven, across the hardwood. Mark. I didn't look up immediately. She stood in the doorway, pale. Phone clutched in her hand like evidence. The mortgage didn't go through. I know. Her eyes widened slightly. What do you mean, you know? I mean, I know. Silence filled the space between us. There must be a mistake, she said quickly. Did you transfer the money late? Did something glitch? No mistake. The words were calm, controlled. Sophie's bedroom door opened upstairs. Music playing faintly, the ordinary rhythm of a morning that no longer existed. Emily's voice sharpened. Mark, what did you do? I took a sip of coffee before answering. I stopped being the ATM. The sentence landed heavier than I expected. For a moment, she didn't understand. I could see it, the mind searching for context that didn't exist. What does that mean? It means, I said evenly, if I'm not obligated, then neither is my money. Her face shifted from confusion to anger in seconds. This is about dinner? You're doing this because of one comment? One comment. I looked at her then, directly. No, I'm doing this because of years. Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the tone. What's going on? Emily didn't answer her. She was still staring at me like I had become a stranger overnight. You can't just stop paying the mortgage, she whispered. This is my house. Exactly. Your house. I stood and placed the coffee mug in the sink. Yes, I said quietly. It is. Sophie came down the stairs slowly, phone in hand. My gas card got declined, she said. What happened? I looked at her. Nothing cruel in my expression. Nothing heated. I happened. She blinked. I don't understand. You said I don't owe you anything, I reminded her. You were fine before me. The color drained from her face. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Silence. Emily stepped between us. This is insane. We have bills. Deadlines. You can't just pull the plug like this. I shrugged slightly. Apparently I can. The panic started settling in then. Real, tangible panic. Emily checked her banking app again like the numbers might correct themselves out of pity. You're overreacting, she snapped. There it was again. I shook my head slowly. No, I've been underreacting for years. Sophie's voice cracked slightly. Are we going to lose the house? That question hung in the air. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Not teenage indifference. Not quiet dismissal. Fear. I felt something twist in my chest. Not satisfaction. Not cruelty. Recognition. This is what dependence looks like when it's exposed. We won't lose anything, Emily said quickly, though she didn't know that. Mark, just fix it. Transfer the money back. I met her gaze steadily. No, the word didn't need volume. Her voice rose. You're punishing us. I'm stepping back, I corrected. This is financial abuse. That word hit harder than anything Sophie had said at dinner. Abuse. For paying every bill, for funding every comfort, for asking for basic respect. I'm not taking anything from you, I said evenly. I'm just no longer providing what I'm told I don't owe. Sophie sat down slowly at the table, pale, quiet. Emily's anger began cracking into something else, calculation. How much is left in the account? She asked tightly. Enough for groceries, I said. For now. She understood then. This wasn't an impulse. It was planned. You moved your paycheck, she said softly. Yes. The room felt smaller. You did this without telling me. You made decisions without telling me too. The words were sharp but not loud. She stepped back like I'd pushed her physically. This is our family. I shook my head. It's your family. I was the sponsor. Sophie's breathing had gone shallow. Dad, she started, then stopped herself. I noticed. So did she. But it was too late. The word hung there, fragile and unfamiliar. I didn't respond to it. Not yet. Emily sank into a chair. What do you want? She asked finally. It was the first honest question. I looked at both of them. I want respect, I said. Not gratitude. Not praise. Respect. Sophie stared at the table. Emily rubbed her temples. This isn't how adults handle things. No, I agreed quietly. This is how adults stop being taken for granted. The mortgage company would call by afternoon. The insurance company would send notices. Tuition would flag overdue. The machine they relied on had stopped humming. And for the first time in years, I wasn't scrambling to keep it running. I walked toward the door, grabbing my jacket. "Where are you going?" Emily demanded. "To work. You can't just leave." I paused at the doorway. "I've been here every day for years. You'll survive a few hours without me." I stepped outside into the Texas heat. The air felt different, lighter, not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I finally understood something simple. If a man is told he isn't necessary, the only way to test that truth is to step aside. And now they were about to find out. Tell me, when the bills started bouncing and the panic set in, was I cruel? Or was I finally honest? The phone started ringing before noon. First the mortgage company, then insurance, then the private school's billing department. Emily called me 3 times in 20 minutes. I let it ring the first 2 times. Not to punish her, not to dramatize anything. I just wanted her to sit with it, with the silence, with the absence of automatic rescue. When I finally answered, her voice was tight and thin. "They're saying if we don't resolve the mortgage within 10 days, it gets reported." "I know how reporting works," I replied calmly. "Mark, this isn't a lesson. This is our credit." The word felt different now. Desperate. "For years," I said, keeping my voice level. "It was my credit that carried everything. My income verification. My guarantees. You were fine with that." "That's not fair." "No," I agreed. "It isn't." There was a pause. I could hear Sophie in the background, crying quietly. That sound hit somewhere deep. I won't lie about that. I'm not made of stone. But neither am I disposable. "You're scaring her," Emily whispered. "I didn't say anything new," I answered. "She said she didn't need me. She didn't mean financially. Then how did she mean it?" Silence again. When someone can't answer a direct question, it tells you more than anger ever could. "I'm coming home," she said finally. "Do that," I replied. I hung up and stared at my computer screen at work. Spreadsheets blurred together. My hands were steady, my breathing even. I wasn't spiraling. I was observing. For years, my role had been silent maintenance. When something broke, I fixed it before anyone felt discomfort. When money tightened, I absorbed the strain privately. They lived in comfort without ever seeing the machinery behind it. Now the machinery was exposed, and it was loud. When I walked in the front door that evening, they were waiting in the living room. Emily standing, Sophie sitting on the edge of the couch, hands clenched together. The air felt charged like before a storm. Emily didn't ease into it. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I stopped transferring money. That's not what I meant." "I know," I said evenly. Sophie looked smaller somehow. Not physically, emotionally. "My tuition payment didn't go through," she said quietly. "They emailed me." "Yes. If it's late, I can't register for next semester." I nodded once. She swallowed. "Why are you doing this?" That question was different. Not accusatory. Not sharp. Genuinely confused. "Because respect can't flow one way," I answered. "I respect you," she insisted quickly. I held her gaze. "When?" She didn't respond. Emily stepped forward. "You're taking one comment and turning it into a crisis." "It wasn't one comment." "Then what was it?" "Years. Years of being consulted last. Years of my opinions being filtered. Years of being the financial spine without being treated like the head of anything." "You said I was overreacting every time I raised something," I said. "So I stopped reacting." Emily's face hardened. "So this is revenge?" "No," I said quietly. "It's withdrawal." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't mean you don't matter," she said. "But that's what you said." "I meant we were okay before. I just didn't want you to feel trapped." Trapped. The irony almost made me laugh. "I wasn't trapped," I said softly. "I was unappreciated." Emily crossed her arms defensively. "We never asked you to do all this." "No," I agreed. You just expected it. That landed hard. Sophie stood up suddenly. So what now? She asked. Do we just lose everything? There it was again. Dependence revealed as fear. You won't lose everything, I said calmly. You'll just have to participate. In what? In responsibility. Emily shook her head. You're punishing a teenager for being emotional. I'm responding to being dismissed. That's different. No, I said. It isn't. The room went quiet. I walked to the kitchen and poured water. Deliberate. Slow. They watched me like I might detonate. I didn't yell. Didn't accuse. Didn't escalate. That was the part they weren't prepared for. If I had screamed, they could have blamed anger. But calm forces reflection. Tell me something, I said, leaning against the counter. If I lost my job tomorrow, who would carry this house? Emily hesitated. We'd figure it out. How? Another pause. We'd downsize, she said finally. Sell the house. I asked. She didn't answer, because she knew. Without my income, the structure collapses. Yet somehow I was optional. Sophie's voice came small. Are you leaving? That question sliced differently. I looked at her. I haven't decided. Emily's eyes widened. You're thinking about it? I'm thinking about what it means to live somewhere I'm not respected. You are respected, she snapped. By you? I asked quietly. She opened her mouth. Closed it. There it was. The truth doesn't need shouting. It just needs space. I walked upstairs and opened the closet. Not to pack. Just to look. My suits. My shoes. My half of the dresser. It all felt temporary suddenly. Like I had been renting emotional space in a house I financed. Downstairs, I could hear Emily speaking in low tones to Sophie. Damage control. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one smoothing things over. That night, dinner was silent. No phones at the table. No casual chatter. Just 3 people staring at plates. Afterward, Sophie approached me hesitantly. Mark, I'm sorry, she said. The words were soft, fragile. I studied her face. Was it remorse or fear of losing comfort? It's hard to tell the difference when money is involved. I appreciate the words, I said, but apology without change is maintenance. She looked confused. It means, I continued, if I restore everything tomorrow and nothing shifts, then this was just inconvenience, not growth. Emily watched from the hallway. So what do you want? She asked again. I want partnership, I said, not patronage. The house felt unfamiliar that night, not because it changed, but because I did. And once a man sees the imbalance clearly, he can't unsee it. The bills were still unpaid. The clock was ticking. And for the first time since I married into that house, I wasn't rushing to save it. Tell me, when a man finally stops cushioning everyone else from consequence, is he abandoning them? Or is he giving them their first real look at reality?